Shel Sanchez, who's going to give an update on a wonderful package she's put together to help some of our most critical economic components with respect to our cultural heritage, but also our economy. So stay tuned for that at the end of our section this morning. Let's begin this morning by talking about updates from central New Mexico, as we usually do. Want to remind folks, of course, there was new orders from the state that came down. One, extending everything that we're doing till the end of April. That makes sense. I think we all expected that. Two, tightening some restrictions. And so just want to highlight that liquor stores, payday lenders, and car dealerships have all been ordered to close. There are some minor exceptions with respect to online ordering and so forth for car dealerships. If you have questions, take a look on the state's websites or give 311 a call. Now, also want to mention there's restrictions on big box stores, which include grocery stores and hardware stores, that they're limited to 20% or of their maximum occupancy as determined by the fire marshal. So our fire marshal is here today if we have questions after on that, but want to mention a lot of stores are doing a great job at this already. And some were not, and I know it's a corporate issue, it's not a local issue, but Lowe's in particular, very problematic. We're going to be checking on that today to make sure that they're following the new rules. And we had a number of complaints about Lowe's all over the weekend, and so I'm glad the state did this. We actually were waiting in some ways to make sure we were aligned to now implement these rules, and so I'm glad the state and city can move on this together. Okay, Albuquerque still needs blood donations. So they are now filled. The blood bank is not filled, but the reservations are until April 9th. We still very much need blood, so we need you to schedule your future appointment now. And the way you can do that is by calling 1-877-258-4825, or you can visit vitalent.org. Now, also, we continue to serve meals to seniors. We have served 24,000 meals in the last 3 weeks. But we are consolidating our sites a little bit. And so I want to make sure folks know there are 5 pickup sites for seniors. And again, you have to pre-register for those. It's a fairly well-run program that's been around. So contact 311 if you have details. But the sites are Barelas, Manzano Mesa, North Domingo Baca, Los Volcanes, and North Valley. Those are the 5 sites. And they're handing out as many as 300 to-go food pickups a day right now. Okay, our environmental health department also announced today that food establishments will now be able to sell convenience store items like toilet paper and paper towels. So stay tuned if you might be able to get that from other places. One other item I want to mention, we've been talking a lot about nursing homes, our concern over the safety of residents in nursing homes. I want to thank all the nursing homes that did follow up with us. There's roughly 150 in central New Mexico. We've heard from all but one. Casa Valencia, which I actually visited long ago when I was campaigning for my state senate race. Casa Valencia, we have not heard anything from them. So we are now sending folks out to physically check on the premises and so forth. So if for some reason anyone knows anyone in Casa Valencia who's watching, reach out to them, and if they can tell their staff to give the environmental health department a call immediately, that would put all of our minds at ease. Okay, with respect to government continuity, one item we want to highlight today, again, we're trying to keep business going as best as we can, and part of that is a lot of RFPs and RFIs. Those are requests for proposals or information, and for us, we are putting out one for the rail yards. And this is through our Metropolitan Redevelopment Agency. And what they're looking for is developers, businesses, creatives, and neighborhoods to team up on an expression of interest to redevelop the north entrance. And this is a very exciting part. If folks have been out there, you'll remember there's an old stone fire station. And that and a couple of other buildings are what we're putting out for development. So again, it's just really 3 facilities that are near the entrance of the rail yards that we want to activate. And again, we've gotten funding from the state and lots of others to help do that. So we're now ready to actually figure out what that's going to look like. And this also, you know, in some ways, it's a way for us to bolster the local economy, but also a way for us to remember and have some hope that hopefully later this summer, the rail yards is going to be open again for the market, and we're going to continue all of our redevelopment efforts for this gem for all our state. Now, a couple of things we want to talk about again with respect to creative economy, and let me highlight two aspects of this. Last week, we announced our micro business support fund. This is a program through our Economic Development Department through Cynthia Jaramillo. She's going to give an update on that. We expect to conclude that fund. The application's already in. We expect to hand those out by the end of the week. So Director Jaramillo is going to speak a little bit about that, and then Director Sanchez is going to talk about our creative economy program. This is something, if you think about the confluence of what's happening, of course, all around the country, but also how it's affecting Albuquerque. The creative economy is a big part of who we are as a city. It's a defining characteristic of us as a city, in many ways, us as a state. We also know that the individuals, the entrepreneurs, and professionals who work in the creative economy tend to be some of the most fragile economically, just because they're often solopreneurs or in a theater troupe and so forth. Some are nonprofits, some aren't. All of these things in general, right, make this world very economically fragile. So we're very excited that Shell and her team have put together a very robust plan to support them during these times. And I'm just going to touch on a few highlights before I hand it over to her. But we're going to be offering a creative economy relief fund of $300,000. That's going to be grant funds for artists and cultural nonprofits. And we're also going to offer a local media programming fund to try and get GOV-16 and our other channels and our social media platforms filled with all sorts of things that we can do via video, and folks can film using the appropriate social distancing guidelines. That also includes $30,000 for a youth version of media programming. And we're also going to make creative check-ins. This is a call for short 5-minute or less videos or items from artists and creatives and makers to check in on what they're working on and how they're doing. And also, our team is going to be providing technical support as well. And so, again, we have a lot of folks who work in cultural services right now who are able to do a little bit of work from home and others and support others while our events right now are closed. So we know that there were lots of interest in this, because when 1,300 people applied for our microeconomic relief, we heard loud and clear from the creative economy that they also need desperate help, and now we're able to provide something meaningful. So first, let's hear update on the Micro Business Fund from Director Jaramillo, and then we'll hear from Shel Sanchez. Cynthia?
Thank you, Mayor. Hello, everyone. As Mayor mentioned, my name is Cynthia Jaramillo, and I am the Director of the Economic Development Department for the City of Albuquerque. Last week, we announced a micro business relief program, and as Mayor said, to no surprise, there's great need in our Albuquerque small business community. We received nearly 1,400 applications from across Albuquerque in every city council district and even beyond. Now, to remind folks, the Micro Business Relief Program is a $500,000 grant program being administered by the City of Albuquerque's Economic Development Department. The $500,000 came from another workforce program already in place, and the funding was redirected through the mayor's emergency powers. Up to 5,000 capital grants will be awarded to qualifying applicants. We began accepting applications just last week on Monday, March 30th, and we closed applications on Friday, April 3rd. My department, as Mayor mentioned, has begun reviewing applications, and we will be in contact with grantees by the end of the week. I also want to remind folks that other funding resources and information can be found on our business resource guide. The guide can be found at www.cabq.gov/coronavirus-information. The resource guide is updated as more information resources are made available, so we encourage folks to check back often. We also want to encourage folks to support local. We continue to urge residents to support local businesses as often as you can. A reminder, purchase gift cards, order delivery or takeout a few times per week. Tip extra if you can. Shop online and source your groceries local. Follow us on social media at CABQ #EconDEV and use the hashtag #SupportLocalABQ. Our small business office is always here to support Albuquerque small businesses, but especially during this unprecedented time. I want to provide a brief overview of other financial resources available to small businesses. The United States federal government has passed and signed into law $349 billion, an aid package to assist small businesses. The CARES Act, via the Small Business Administration, makes funding available to small businesses on a first-come, first-served basis. There are 4 programs available. Number 1, the Paycheck Protection Program. That's a loan forgiveness program for retaining employees via the Small Business Administration 7A loan. Number 2, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. That's up to $10,000 loan advance for small businesses currently experiencing temporary difficulties. There are also bridge loans for businesses that have used SBA Express. That will support and enable small businesses to quickly access up to $25,000 via the Small Business Administration Express lenders. There's also, number 4, debt relief for existing SBA loans. This is actually SBA debt relief, also known as loan deferment programs, for current SBA 7A 504 loans up to 6 months. And you can visit the Small Business Administration's website. Now, the New Mexico Economic Development Department also has created a loan guarantee and no interest loan program to assist businesses during COVID-19. The SBO office is available to assist folks applying for these programs by contacting us at 505-768-3270. Thank you. Mayor.
Okay, and now to talk specifically about creative economy, our Director of Cultural Services, Shel Sanchez. And I got the name of the fund wrong, so you can correct it for everyone. It's the Project?
It's the Project Recovery. That's right. I'm
Okay.
here to.
Everything's a little fluid these days, right? So I'm very happy to be here today. I'm passionate about the creative economy and all our artists and creatives and our arts organizations here in Albuquerque. And I'm glad that under Mayor Keller's leadership and along with his deep commitment to arts in our community, that we get to announce $500,000 in efforts today that are specifically for Albuquerque's creative economy. So let me just step you through those. The biggest piece of that is $300,000 for arts and cultural nonprofits in Albuquerque, and that's funded through the Urban Enhancement Trust Fund. So these are existing funds that are in reserve, and these are to help arts organizations recover, reimagine, remount events, programs, exhibits, anything that has been canceled due to COVID-19. And the funding applications are open today through next Tuesday. We're trying to get this money out fast, so we're asking the community to respond quickly. We're also allocating, as Mayor referred to, DIY media funds up to $150,000. Now this is for artists, individual artists and creatives, so musicians, performers, media makers, arts educators, teaching artists, any kind of creative maker or artisan is eligible for these funds. So it's $150,000. 100 of them is just for general content that will go on our social media channels, public access channels, GOV-TV, local origination, public access. And 50,000 of that is specifically designated for arts education, focusing on family and youth. So if you can teach our kids who are at home something new, and maybe their parents, there's $50,000 for media development in that fund as well. So that's 300 and 100 and 150 if you're keeping track. And there's another $50,000 for the mayor's Creative Youth Corps, which we were going to launch this summer. We're going to launch it. It might be remote internships, but we're still going to do it. So $50,000 in summer stipends for youth, high school youth, or recently graduated youth who are interested in careers in the arts. So that is $500,000 going out on the street. We're very excited about that. All of the applications are open starting today, except for the Youth Corps. That will open next week. Again, for arts organizations, they're due on April 14th. For individuals, those applications are going to be open through the end of this month, so actually till May 1st, Friday, May 1st. And then we have a couple more things that Mayor referred to, the creative quarantine. So these are 5-minute videos. We're asking artists, makers, creatives to just create their own video, 5 minutes, put it in our Dropbox, and share with us how you're making, if you're making, what your creative constraints are during this time, and we're going to remix that and share it back out to the community. We're also going to have technical support available on Fridays for arts organizations and our creatives. So if you're interested, you can email, all of this information is on our website. You can email and ask for invitations to our Zoom conferences. We'll have business coaches, creative professionals from cultural services to help you answer questions about opportunities that are out there, not just ours, but other opportunities that are out there in the community. And speaking of that, I just want to say I'm very proud of what the City of Albuquerque has put together and this $500,000, but there's a lot going on in the community as well. And so 516 Arts has the Fulcrum Fund. They're going to be giving out $1,000 stipends, 60 of them to artists in our community. So those applications are still open at 516 Arts. Please look at that. And then the Albuquerque Community Foundation and United Way of Central New Mexico also have a fund set up for nonprofits, and those are eligible for our arts nonprofits as well. So that is a lot of information. It's going out in a very detailed press release today. Will be up on the city's website, on the Cultural Services website. I just want to say before closing, as so many things that we kind of count on as constant change every single day, I think the value of creativity and innovation and self-expression, these things become more valuable. I know that we're turning to music and we're turning to literature, we're turning to movies and storytelling and craft because it inspires us and it teaches us and it connects us in the face of enormous change every single day for all of us. And so I want to thank all of our artists and creatives in our community. I want to thank you with deep, deep, deep gratitude, sincere admiration for what you're continuing to do. Because even in these times, you're inspiring, you're connecting, you're shining a light on our beauty and on possibility. So I'm glad that we can step up and be there for you, and hope to hear from all of you very soon. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Okay, thank you so much, and just heartfelt and important words during obviously some tough times. And I am proud to say that I think Albuquerque as a community, but in addition to our department, we're at the forefront of this in America. So there are a few other cities really focusing on some creative economy relief efforts, but we are one of them. And I know on our conference of mayors discussions that I've been having, folks were just blown away by the programs that you're putting together and also our economic relief program. So just good examples on how we're all stepping up in ways that we can. Okay, we are going to take some questions here in a moment, but let me mention a few other items. First, ways to help. I do want to remind folks you can donate to the One Albuquerque Fund, and you can earmark funds for creative economy or for micro businesses. And that's, again, the fastest method, at least, to support and supplement these city efforts. And you can do that also online at onealbuquerque.org. Now, I want to touch base one of our myth-busting items, pretty straightforward, but this one is really about these scam calls that we know are happening. If somebody calls you and asks for your Social Security number, don't give it to them in general. There's really no reason why everyone should ever call you for that. So don't let sort of the Corona preface trick you on that one. Okay, now takeout in the office yesterday was Casina Azul. So with that, we're going to have time for questions.
We have several. Just about we've been getting a lot of calls, emails from viewers with several concerns about the liquor store ordinance. I guess first one is people have been kind of hearing that some liquor stores might start like selling fruit or some sort of groceries to try and stay operational. Is that allowed at all?
So a couple of things about sort of the liquor store ordinance. Number one, the state is leading the enforcement on that, so I would get official answers from the state. But from a city perspective, here's what I can tell you. The city definition of a grocery store is 50% of the square footage available for food. And so that's the definition we used for smoke shops and others who are also trying to do that. That's a definition that's in city ordinance. So if they're not meeting that definition, they'll have to close.
As far as like Gruet, the winery, is that also under this? And if so, does that only relate to people actually going there and getting wine? Does that affect their distribution at all? Just questions surrounding Gruet and other wineries.
That's a great question for the state. Yeah, you'll have to look at their regs on that one.
Do you have another?
I have another one that is separate. This is from TJ. So the CDC is estimating the entire state will be shy 130 ICU beds come April 21st. However, I think he meant city. However, the state will have plenty of hospital beds. Is the city working with the state on the issue? And are there any plans in place if there is a shortage of ICU beds?
So the city and the state are working together literally every day. Sometimes I even hop on those calls. We're in very close communication on this exact issue. In fact, I have a briefing with, sounds like the same information that you have. And so basically this is all why we are doing the things that we're doing, whether it's reaching out. There's also a ventilator shortage. That's the next sort of page in that report. So that's why we're reaching out and trying to get them. It's why we're preparing Loveless, the old hospital. It's why we're also looking at if we need to use the convention center. And the issue is really, depending on how the Department of Health and hospitals want to work it, it's moving folks out of other hospital beds so that they can convert those to ICU, and then these new areas can be used for non-ICU facilities. But again, those specifics, the DOH is way into all those details, so they can speak to you further on that. But we talk all the time. Talked to the governor yesterday.
We do have a few questions. But
Sure.
We're trying to make sure everyone can hear the audio before we continue.
Yeah.
So just give us one moment. Well, I'm going to ask it anyway. One question from KOB is, why do you feel that it's important for the government to support local artists during this time?
Because primarily local artists are part of, number one, our economy. So compared to other cities around the country, we have a much, much higher percentage of folks in the creative industry. So that's number one. Number two, they're some of the most fragile. So like our small mom and pop businesses that we're helping with our other fund, the other category of fragility is really the creative folks. But Shell, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I'm happy to.
I think one thing that's really important to understand is that the creative economy for the state and for Albuquerque, if you go back and look at the research that's been done over the last decade, it is larger than our manufacturing and construction industry together. So if you really think about that in terms of the number of jobs, the number of people that are working in these spaces, it's a huge piece of the people who are working and earning money. I think the other thing that's important to know that this is money that was in our budget, and it's money that is ultimately going to go back and benefit the community. All of these are contracts for services. That's true for the arts organizations. It's true for the individual artists who we actually choose their proposals. This is content that will come back and be shared with the community. So this is kind of what we do all the time in cultural services through our professional services contracts. We contract with these different organizations to create content that then is shared with the broader community.
No more from this one. Oh wait, one more from Sam. They almost missed their chance.
Sure.
Will the city enforce the state's updated health order limiting the number of people in big box stores? Is this something the fire department will be enforcing? From KRTV.
So the question is just about enforcement on all this, and as has always been the case, the state is taking the lead on all enforcement with respect to everything other than special situations that we deem of a higher level of emergency that we need to add some critical city resources towards. So if there is egregious violations of any of these, we will absolutely send in, whether it's our fire department or the planning department or the police department. But the hotline and all of that kind of activity is being handled by the state. Okay, all right, we will see you tomorrow.